A dumb man once said, Ralph Maccio.
You stupid.
Daredevil, the superhero I knew the least about when I first read him, and he left me hungry for more. But now, as I've started to go through Miller's core run, it hasn't quite hit the bullseye. Thankfully though, the first volume ended with the real Ralph Maccio finally realizing this fucker's special, and this volume finally has Miller as the sole writer and partial artist for its entirety, and my body is ready. So, without further ado, let's get into Daredevil issue number, what the fuck, this guy's back? When I saw this was a Gladiator story, I got a bit worried, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm happy to say Miller takes a previously one-dimensional character and adds a whole new flavor. This time, Matt is Gladiator's lawyer after he's recovered from his psychosis when Daredevil took him down, and it's a really interesting dynamic. I do like that we finally are getting more coverage of Matt the lawyer and not just Matt the superhero. Daredevil in general is just a really nice exception to the all heroes are vigilantes argument. The art though is a good time. I never really got tired of looking at it, but it's not like wow just yet. Anyways, Gladiator breaks out of prison, but we learn that there's this other guy framing him, and some of his scenes are pretty intense. As an opener, it really functions well alongside some classic Frank Miller action. It's not too long, it's paced pretty well, and I'm ready for more. And more I shall get with the return of our favorite baddie, Elektra, and if you showed me this cover last video, I wouldn't have thought it was real. The issue opens with a team of ninjas trying to assassinate Matt, but we learned that they previously trained with Elektra. So Elektra is forced to come back to New York to help, and we learn that it was Kingpin who put the hit out, and Kingpin's plan is just dastardly. Alright, let me break this down. So Kingpin wants Daredevil dead, but he doesn't want to do it himself. So he asks this guy to do it, but he doesn't want to do it himself. So he asks Kirigi, this master ninja, to do it, but he doesn't want to do it himself. And then Kirigi doesn't want to do it himself and asks these level 1 goon ninjas to do it. And they actually do try, but they fail anyways. So that whole plan takes like 80 pages to resolve, and nothing really changes. Kingpin definitely went to the Sheev Palpatine school of villainry. The highlight though is still Miller's writing. Just read these 3 panels when Matt is hospitalized. For a time, he floats in a void that is as dark and silent as death. Then, he feels starched cotton fiber rustle lightly against his legs. He smells the sharp ammonia-laden antiseptic of a hospital oddly mixed with a delicate perfume. He hears a soft and melodic voice. "You had us worried, lover." He wakes, but the darkness never leaves. The fucking balls to have 3 blank panels is just so cool. Someone told me that Miller eventually falls off, but his style in my novice experience is really yet to be replicated. And between this and Kingpin in my last video, Miller has such a way to shift villains to protagonists so well. Oh man, and I just love ninjas. Why aren't there more ninja stuff nowadays? Anyways, what's next?
Oh my god!
This issue is mostly a big action sequence of Elektra and Daredevil fighting their way through the ninjas. It's alright. I think some of the arcs though so far are definitely a bit more drawn out than they need to be. The next issue is pretty similar. If you really like action, you'll like it, but I'm still hungry for more of those character moments. Our big bad Kirigi is this immortal samurai who can't die until Elektra does, which is pretty interesting on the surface. But then Elektra kills him by slicing his head off, so fuck me, I guess. A character that's not so interesting though is Heather Glenn, and I think I must have missed a story that told me about her because Matt is super mean, and I just like get the vibe that there's something going on that I don't know about. We don't got time to worry about that though, because now Daredevil is looking for our old friend Stick Watts, his original mentor, because he's lost part of his powers. These first few issues are really solid, but I still haven't had that wow moment. And now with Stick, who really intrigued me in Man Without Fear, training Matt, I'm still waiting for what curves Miller will throw in. Thankfully though, every time the writing takes a bit of a step back, the art takes a step up, and it leads to these pretty simple events like a flashback coming across as like visionary. And vice versa, the early writing highlight for me is J Jonah Jameson making an appearance. He doesn't have quite that much to do yet, but I just love this motherfucker so much, and seeing this gritty interpretation of his character got me way too excited. And framing him against Kingpin, who is trying to get this corrupt politician elected mayor, is a continued demonstration of Miller writing stories I never knew I needed. And then JJJ hires Nelson and Murdoch, attorneys at law, and it just comes together so nicely. An early theory about these issues I have is the audience must have drastically increased because Miller has to explain Daredevil's origin like 4 separate times, presumably so they don't get lost, but it's so much more respectful to existing readers when he adds so much flair to basic exposition. And comparing it to the last volume, which also had a re-explanation of his origin, it's night and day. Alright, let's play a little game. Let's see if you can guess how Miller dresses up a retelling of Matt's origin. Is it A, sprinkle in present-day Matt to narrate over his past experiences? B, have him explain to another hero that's a glorified fish out of water? C, just a fucking wall of text at George Perez? Or D, a Lovecraftian alien representing the manifestation of Matt's psychological blocker stemming from his trauma being bullied? I fucking adore this sequence, and it would just be so easy to do this like a typical hero, but you can just see the passion everyone has for this character, and it's infectious. I love it, I love it, I love it. I do still want Stick to kind of show his layers, but overall a fantastic issue and the best so far. Also, they totally forgot about Gladiator. There's like no resolution to his character for some reason. And much like I was introduced to Daredevil through Spider-Man, I'm gonna meet Power Man and Iron Fist through Daredevil. And not to diss either of them, but I think it's just with pretty much every non-explicit crossover, which is like a Daredevil headline story with non-Daredevil characters, they all kind of feel like ads. And I think the only exception to this so far is probably Hulk and the Amazing Spider-Man, but it's just very hard to introduce such forces of nature naturally. Also, I may be dumb, but isn't Luke Cage Iron Fist? I didn't realize they were 2 different characters. Don't get me wrong, it's not Spider-Man Annual 1 bad, but it's just hard to care about that much when I know they're not going to be here next issue. Especially since there are so many more Daredevil originated characters that I've been dying to get more of. Speaking of those characters, the big development this issue is Kingpin seeking to hire Elektra. I haven't really been a fan of this like weird abstract idea that Elektra has to kill Daredevil because of reasons, but I think this is a really good choice to make it much more believable in my mind. And Elektra as a villain, which by the way is like our 3rd great example of hero villain switch up, is straight up terrifying. That terror though isn't ever present, and we still get these like wacky hijinks, which I really enjoy this middle ground between like zany and gritty. He's violating our civil rights. Can I say something weird for a second? I know I'm new to comics, but I'm pretty surprised how ever present this trope of like the workaholic man who neglects his wife. Like Gordon from Batman, Peter Parker like 3 times in Spider-Man, Harvey in Long Halloween, Matt with Heather here, and then Ben also here. I don't really have anything to say about it other than I think it's interesting how common it is. And you know, thinking like about it more, the only dude who loves his significant other more than his work is Kingpin. And maybe Foggy. Speaking of Ben, he's a reporter trying to expose Kingpin's operation. He was in the last volume, but he's much more important here as he's been following Kingpin and he sees a weird looking lady who's living in the sewers and takes her picture. But then Elektra, who still works for Kingpin, remember, overpowers Matt and fucking impales Ben, who somehow survives, but it was a great sequence nonetheless. And the next issue, ooh, Chef's Kiss, comes completely out of left field. The first page takes place in like a zombie secret cult beneath New York City. I guess I just am so pleasantly surprised how much this volume is experimenting with the usual Daredevil formula. And one such zombie, the same one Ben photographed, is Kingpin's fucking dead wife. Holy shit, what a reveal. And when we see her in the sewers, it's this beautiful double pager. The panel design has been pretty tame, honestly, but this is super welcome, and she even has like her own zombie Kingpin husband. And now Ben and Daredevil need to escape from like a giant evil zombie crocodile. Like, are you kidding me? I can only imagine how much more difficult it is to make a 20-issue run as engaging as a self-contained 4-issue story, but tales like this where we get something totally offbeat really do wonders to keep me on my toes. And what's that? Bullseye's back, and he or Elektra is gonna die. And let's say you didn't read any of his stuff earlier. This is your first Daredevil issue. Miller just summarizes it all in the very first page. I hadn't really considered expository dialogue as a skill, but he really excels in it. And Bullseye just gets the best scene, such creative action. Like in these opening 4 pages, he uses a pill to disorient a guard, and when he runs out of bullets, he just Leroy Jenkinses the gun itself. So Bullseye wants to be Kingpin's top assassin again, so he goes after Elektra first, and this is a treat of a fight. And then with a literal ace of spades up his sleeve, he guts Elektra in this jaw-dropper of a page. Bullseye isn't just a brute either. He discovers the link of Matt and Daredevil, so he sneaks into Elektra's autopsy and talks to Matt, who obviously gets startled since like it's Bullseye's voice, which tells Bullseye all he needs to hear to put it all together. He knows that Matt is Daredevil. But because he's been like mentally insane these last few issues, Kingpin doesn't end up believing him and he demands Daredevil's body to prove it. But then he does this shit that Bullseye tried to pull on him way back when with Black Widow being like the dummy doll, and it is just so great to read smart, capable characters like these two. And Bullseye using Elektra's old weapons is also such a great visual motif for their fight. So Daredevil learning his lesson from last volume fucking cripples Bullseye, and fuck me up, that was one of the best issues I've read so far. And we end in this great set of rhyming panels reminding us that the status quo is no longer. Right? Okay, this is a little too out of hand. In this volume alone, we've had fake out deaths with Kingpin's wife, Ben, Bullseye, and now maybe Elektra. It's just too many. It's later soft confirmed that she is dead, but I don't know, man. Something doesn't smell right. Oh, and the Punisher is here too. I don't know anything about the guy, but it is just a hard time to introduce a new character. Speaking of characters that I don't really care for, Heather Glenn, what is up with her? She's given us nothing to do. Matt is a dick to her, which makes me also not like him, and her scenes are just so meh. The volume definitely peaks with Elektra's death. The last 3 issues are fine, but you can just tell that they already come down from that high. It's hard, like they really go into this Punisher stuff, but it makes like the last quarter of the volume alright. It's just fine. Not bad, it's okay. Punisher is a foil to Matt with his no-kill rule, but I don't really find the no-kill rule to be as compelling in Daredevil as someone like Batman, because Daredevil's world is much more similar to our own. And I really don't like that Matt is a huge asshole to Heather until he confirms that Elektra is dead. And then suddenly he's like, you have to marry me, Heather. I love you, baby. I love you. And then it's like you just were simping for Elektra and then neglecting Heather for like 300 pages, my guy. And the final issue is alright. I guess I just get the feeling that these mini arcs are just kind of the placeholder until the next big thing happens. I still really like the art though. It's funny, the beginning and ending of this volume are kind of but the middle is an instant classic. I definitely want to finish up Miller's core run, but I like to give myself some time to reflect before jumping in. So next week, I want to do something a little bit different and talk about Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So come aboard and subscribe if you don't want to miss that. After that though, I definitely rely on y'all to keep suggesting stories or other heroes to read with fresh Gen Z eyes, so feel free to let me know in the comments. I try to read every single one. Frank Miller's second volume is a huge step up from last time, but I think there were more than a few pages that were pretty blatant filler. I feel like reading this monthly at the time would yield a much better experience, but going through it all at once has made the pacing a bit hit or miss. Still though, I would definitely recommend it overall, and I'm happy to say Frank Miller's Daredevil Volume 2 gets a 7 out of 10. Have a good one. Peace.